welcome. Day 3, apparel textile sourcing virtual. Just getting used to saying that. First time us ever doing this. We have the beautiful and talented Anna Livermore joining us again. Her presentation is on the top 10 mistakes designers make. It's very informative. Make sure to take notes. We have a chat box and a Q&A box, which are separate, but either one you choose to use, we'll address your questions at the very end. Anna?
Great.
Go for it.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, so we are going to go over top 10 mistakes to avoid as a new designer so that hopefully you can save money and time. If you've already launched and maybe you've done some of these yourself, no big deal. The way I always look at it, as a new designer, let's say you didn't go to school for fashion design and you didn't, spend all this money being educated in college to become a fashion designer. This is kind of your college course. And trust me, if you didn't go to school for fashion design and you're launching a clothing line, you're probably, even with all the mistakes you're going to make, still spending less money. I went to school for fashion design. It's very expensive. And then I did all this. So yes. So you're good. If you did go to school for fashion design, then you should know enough that you wouldn't make these mistakes. But basically, I just don't want you guys to feel hard on yourself or get super upset about trying to figure something else or trying to figure out something new and possibly making a mistake that costs you money. It's a learning curve. It's part of the game. The most important part is to pick yourself up, learn from your experience, and keep moving forward. A very common thread that I find with any successful entrepreneur or designer is when you talk about like, oh, what did you do? Tell me something that didn't work, or tell me some time you messed up. And a successful designer will always say, or even entrepreneur will always say, well, there was one time where I tried to do this, it didn't work, it didn't sell, but then I morphed it into this and learned from it and made something super successful moving forward because of it. So instead of looking at these failures as the end all be all, what you can actually do is like learning experience. How am I going to avoid that in the future and move forward? So without further ado, I'm going to bring us into our panel for today. Let me go ahead and get that ready for everybody. And I'm going to share screen so you guys can see my little PowerPoint. All right, here we go. All right, so top 10 mistakes designers make. I am Anna Livermore. I own Vmora, and Vmora is a company that helps launch fashion designers. I work one-on-one in a coaching format. If you would like to learn to do it on your own, I'll guide you through it. I'll give you all the resources I've built over the last 10 years, make the introductions, the templates, the checklists. If you guys have been on any of my other seminars this week, you'll know that I'm slightly OCD, so everything has a system and a template and a checklist, and through the coaching, you get access to all of that. We also do production management, where you can just be like, here, help. You handle the pickups, the drop-offs, the quality checks. I'll be there through the process, but we do the legwork for you. We also do patterns, samples, manufacturing, branding, photo shoots, social media. So whatever you need as a new designer, we can help. And that's me. Okay, number 1 mistake you want to avoid is buying retail fabric for a wholesale product. And it's very easy to go, well, it was before they all closed down of not being essential businesses, but it was very easy to go to a Vogue or a Joann Fabrics or some sort of retail shop for your fabric, pick up some fabric and make a sample. Then you didn't have to source it and go through vendors and go to trade shows and all of that. But what happens there is you're using a product that's priced at a retail level, not for wholesale. And B, when you make that sample and you're showing that sample, and then you go back to sell that sample, that fabric might not necessarily be available for you, and you'll have to start over in the sourcing. So if you're doing prototypes or trying to develop a look or a design and you're sewing yourself, go ahead and buy retail fabric, that's fine. But once you're going for a garment that you're going to be showing to people, to sell to people, whether that's online or to buyers at a store, anything like that, it'll need to be from a wholesale vendor. Where can you find wholesale vendors? Places like this trade show. There's quite a few trade shows that you can work with wholesale vendors. You'll get a wholesale price. You'll want to talk about minimums. If you're doing a small production, then you'll be specifically looking for vendors that will cater to a small minimum. Anyways, please buy retail fabric for your wholesale products. I'm sorry, that was wrong. Please buy wholesale fabrics for your wholesale products. Got it. Okay, number 2, cutting corners when it comes to pattern making. So my favorite saying is, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't sell. You know, if you've spent millions of dollars encrusting this entire garment in gold and diamonds, if a person tries it on and it doesn't fit, it will not sell, no matter how beautiful it is. So you want to make sure that for your first season, you're spending the time in pattern making to have these patterns that are going to fit people properly. You'll not be able to fit every person in the world with your styles, but you'll want to use a standard size chart, grade in a way people are familiar. You'll want to decide if my line is for bustier women or hippier women with larger hips. You'll want all of your styles to be set around that grade. So developing your size chart and doing your pattern making with a professional pattern maker, someone that's familiar with your type of product, someone that has lots of experience. You'll get what you pay for when it comes to patterns. So you can hire an intern or a student, but you'll get intern or student work. And while that is okay in other areas, with pattern making, it's really, really important, especially because you're going to use these patterns next season and season after as your blocks. So everything will be built off of this first season patterns. So it's really important that you are having your patterns done properly, for sure. And that also comes, like sample sewing, for example, you can find a really talented seamstress. You know, I've shared that here in Vermont, I live in New York. I am in Vermont. I've been here since March, and I found some really talented local seamstresses that have the equipment at home to be able to help with the sample making. Great, because I can see it. I can know their quality. It's in front of me. But when it comes to pattern making, you need someone with experience that you trust. So I wouldn't have pulled my pattern making to anyone in Vermont without having heard of their reputation and their experience. So pattern making is really important. You can cut corners other places, but I wouldn't suggest it in your pattern making. Okay, not budgeting accurately for production. So this goes for everything. Not budgeting properly is one of the leading reasons why designers are unable to move forward or have to put things on hold, is because they weren't realistic with their budget in the beginning. And you'll want to budget through your production, through your samples of your second season, because you won't be getting paid on your production until your delivery. And before you deliver on your production of your first season, you'll have to be developing the samples of your second. You'll also want to keep in mind there's things like Photoshoots and websites and all of those things that you'll also have to budget for, because if you make the production and you're not able to promote it and you're not able to let people know it's there, how are they going to buy it? So being really, really, really mindful with your budget, however much you have. If you have $5,000, great. Just making sure that you're very, very effective in your budgeting throughout where you're going to spend all of that $5,000 so that it can get you as far as possible with the largest return. But you've got to be honest and sit down and do this budgeting, even though it's not really that fun, but it can be super empowering, because then you know what you're spending money on and what you can't spend money on and what you've got budgeted out and what you can afford. changing your mind and neglecting to make final decisions. Okay, so this one happens. I always let everyone know that this will happen, or might happen, or usually happens right before you purchase fabric for your first samples, right before you purchase your fabric and supplies for your production, and right before you go to sell your goods and launch online. And I've seen this time and time again. What's actually happening here is fear. You know, you're launching this clothing line for the very first time, and when you go to buy your sample fabric, this is the first time that this idea has come from your head into, here, take my credit card, I'm spending money on this investment. Very first time, because before that you're sketching and you've got ideas and you're sourcing and it's all the fun things. And then it gets a little real when you've got to buy that fabric for samples. And what that looks like in neglecting to make the decision is, oh, I can't find the perfect fabric, and this one's sort of okay, but I want something better, and this one isn't the exact color, and this one is that. And you're spinning around not finding this perfect fabric, but what's really happening is the fear of moving forward. And you need to keep in mind that even if it's not the perfect fabric, you're making a sample, and you know, you'll have opportunities to change it later if needed, but you also want to relax that idea of a perfect fabric, because if you're looking for something very specific, you could be looking forever. It might not be available. So keeping an open mind around the kind of fabric that you're ordering will help you move forward. And then again, when you're purchasing the fabric for your production order, that's the first large purchase. So again, that's when people kind of like back away and get cold feet. And then when you go to launch and sell, this is you being like, hey, it's out there. This is what I did. What do you think of it? And you might get some negative feedback. People might not like your product. That is just part of the game. That's part of it. I always say, if you're not hearing negative feedback or people that are saying that things should be different or this or that, then you're not putting yourself out there enough, because not enough people know about your product. It will be impossible to please everyone on the planet. It's just not possible. And if you try, you'll have such a watered down product that nobody will be interested in it because it's so plain, or it's so whatever. It's just not going to be interesting. You want it to be interesting enough that it attracts, you know, your customer, your ideal customer, but not everybody in the world. So keep in mind as you're going through, if you find yourself stalling on a decision, just do a gut check. Like, is this fear? Am I procrastinating because I'm afraid? And make the decisions and move forward. Number 5. This one can be a costly one. So not wash testing, screen testing, dry cleaning, ironing, everything that should be done to your finished garment, you want to do in the sample phase. So if you have a sample, everything is great. And then in production, that sample gets ironed and it shrinks. You need to know that in the sample process in order to tell the factory not to iron your garment. Because if they iron your garment in production, that's not fault of theirs. If they didn't know that it couldn't be ironed, it's assumed that by production, all the testing has been done. And if there's any specific directions, that has to be given to your factory at that time. And this goes for the screen print. You'll want to test that prior to your production, because if, let's say, your production happens and the screen printing reacts with the color of the fabric and it might pull out the color, any of that you want to do in that sample phase. If your garment will go in the washer and the dryer and bleed all over the place and your customer is going to pull it out and be like, what is this garment? You want to know that in the testing. So test everything in that sample. I know it takes a little bit more time and a little bit more due diligence work in the beginning, but it's absolutely worth it, because if anything's going to happen to that garment in production, you want to be able to find a solution, whether that's this can't be pressed with hot steam, this can't be put in the washer and the dryer, it has to be dry cleaned, or maybe it's a button that bled and you need to change that button out. If it's screen printing, then they've got to figure out the press and the heat and the time that they hold it to where it doesn't pull out that color. Make sense? So do everything ahead of time. Oh, and fabric shrinking. for fabric shrinking, when you get, I always tell people this, it's helpful, I think, when you get your sample fabric, you'll want to cut off a little piece and draw a 12 by 12 box and permanent marker, throw that piece of fabric in the washer and the dryer, and then take it out and measure that 12 by 12 square and see what it measures now. If it shrinks any more than 4%, that is too much. It will affect your garment. So you'll need to find a different fabric, pre-wash your fabric, but you need to find a solution for anything that shrinks more than 4%. So if you throw this 12 by 12, wash, dry, and it comes out and it's 10 by 10, you got an issue. You got to figure that out beforehand. And this is information, just so you know, that you provide your factory. You have to let your factory know, or whoever is doing your product, that these are the requirements. You know, like I said yesterday, working with your manufacturers, they want to cut, they want to sew. It's not their responsibility to be testing your garments or to be working with any of that up front. This is your production, your sample. You'll want to test all of your fabrics, wash and dry it, do all of this on your end. There's testing facilities too if you're doing anything that's really specific. Children's wear, for example, making sure, you know, the flammability is what's required, things like that. So there are testing facilities that will do that for you, but it's usually, I've never seen it be the factory that's doing your testing. You need to give them the directions in order for it to come out right. All right. Skipping tech packs. So a tech pack is a blueprint that includes everything that your product sample production needs. Everything is on there. And when you don't provide this, it it can give some leeway of the factories coming back and not having direction on maybe the color of the thread or where the labels are placed. And they'll take the liberty to make those decisions for you. And we don't want that. We want you to have all the directions, everything that you need in the tech packs, what are the specs, all of that should be provided to the manufacturer. So don't skip your tech packs, it's important. A lot of times factories will tell you they don't need a tech pack. That is because then they have nothing in writing that will hold them to what the production needs to look like. So don't skip them, it's not worth it. All right, planning a fashion show, a trade show, selling event before you talk to your factory about the deadline, and then not adding a cushion, and then, you know, starting the timeline before they've got the materials in hand. So there's nothing worse than having a fashion show and you don't have your garments, or going to a trade show and you've got nothing to sell, or having a big meeting and you don't have your samples. So all of these are so important that you don't want to plan these until you are 100% sure that the factory has everything they need to start your production and they're going to end on time. And then still add a cushion, 2-week cushion of what that deadline is, because things could, we don't want FedEx, UPS, USPS are great, but you don't want your entire company relying on them delivering your package on time. Sometimes things happen. And if it comes and it's a day late and you miss everything, that's too much of a risk. We don't want to do that. So make sure that you're planning things, know how much time it's going to take, talk to your factory, make sure that they have all the materials they need, because let's say the factory's like, oh yeah, it'll take 6 weeks. So you plan an event 6 weeks from, you order the fabric, you give the fabric a week to deliver, and then you plan an event 6 weeks from there. Well, all it would take is a delay in your fabric order. Maybe it's on back order, or it gets stuck in customs, or there's so many things that can happen that can throw that deadline off. You just want to make sure that you plan it, you know that everything's in hand, and you also provide a cushion in case there's something that happens. So I used to, when I was new in my career, get phone calls from designers in tears. I've got 3 days. I need samples. Please help me. This happened and that happened, and I have this event and I need to, and can you please help me? And like, I felt so bad for this designer, and I had so much compassion for that, that I'd say, yes, I will help you. And what I would do is my staff and I would pull all-nighters together, and we would sew and do patterns and, work our butts off. And then if just the minor thing happens, one time we didn't get the fabric in time. It never came. We only had a day, and it wasn't enough time to turn it around and ship it. And that designer got upset with me because I was the one that promised him that I could do it in 3 days. Sometimes if you don't give your sewer enough time to give a quality product, it affects the product. My seamstress was again working, and in the serger, they serged all through the front of the dress because we were rushed and we were hurried, and there's a big hole there, and that's devastating, right? So now, unfortunately, I get that call from really upset designers that have a really tight timeline. I've got to turn it away. I've got to say no, because I don't have enough time to give you a product of the quality that you're going to want or I'm going to be proud of. So you really want to make sure that you're not stuck in that situation. So plan accordingly. And I know too, I used to kind of do this to myself on purpose. This is back when I was young in school. And very last minute, I'd run around, and I remember sewing buttons onto a shirt while driving on Lakeshore Drive to drop off the samples for a customer of mine. Yeah, putting my life in complete danger. But I loved the excitement of it, and it made me feel important. And I was like running around as this crazy fashion designer. And it's like, someone pointed out to me, they're like, you love it. And you do that to yourself. You're either saying yes to things you should be saying no to, or you're not managing your time properly. There is no reason you ever need to sew buttons on Lakeshore Drive while driving a vehicle. I've seen you drive. It's horrible, and it's true. I'm not a good driver. So I kind of had like an aha moment at that time of like, I'm doing this to myself. So whatever attachment I had to the drama and the excitement, I had to let go, because that is not a productive way to own a company. So planning events, timelines, very important. Don't do this before you know that someone isn't going to have to sew the buttons on Lakeshore Drive to get that timeline met. All right. Not setting realistic timelines. Again, this is like a repeat of this last slide. You don't want to plan an event before you know the timeline, and you want to sit down in the beginning and plan everything accordingly. So this is another reason I see designers set themselves up for failure. It's one is budgeting, and two is timeline. You want to be very realistic with all of that. So for a new designer, brand new, you're going to figure it out on your own, build the sources, build the team, find the factories and the fabrics. Give yourself a year before you launch. Even for companies, if you're going to come and hire Vmora, we're going to tell you six months. If you're 6 to 9 months before you launch. And I actually believe I was going to get into, so coaching. So I do one-on-one coaching with designers where we will set out your timeline. We will set out your budget, your costing, because those are the 3 things that you need to do before you sit down to sell. If you've got a realistic timeline, a realistic budget, and you figured out the costing of your garments so that you're going to be profitable, you have so much, it's so much more likely that you're going to be successful, because those are important things, most important things to being a designer. So in this coaching, we go through all of that. You pick 4 calls and topics of what you want to go over. We cover it. I give you my templates, my resources, my people, everything you need to be able to go out and implement on your own. And we're offering it for $1,200. I love doing it. It's been super amazing to have my clients and moving through this COVID thing together and giving them the inspiration and sharing stories with each other of like, they're launching, they're selling, and they're doing it successfully, and you can too. And having a support system and someone to help you through that is detrimental to your success. So if you're interested in the coaching one-on-one with me, contact us at vmorainquiry@vmora.com. I also do 20-minute strategy sessions, complimentary, totally free. So if you're interested in that, get a hold of us and we can schedule that as well. All right, and number 9, not thinking all the way through for marketing and photo shoots. Now more than ever, you've got to think about your marketing, because that's how people are buying. We can't go to stores right now. So even more so than now, I heard one of my friends owns a tech company, and she said that we are now in what they suspected it would look like in 2030 for online retail stores. So what that means is people that didn't necessarily sell online are now everybody's online, because that's the only way that you can sell. So it kind of catapulted us into the future of what buying and selling is going to look like. So you've really got to think about your photo shoots and your marketing and what it's going to look like, especially in today's environment. If you were on our Monday presentation, and Jason, they get recordings of the old presentations if they missed it, right? Yes?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So Monday I talked about some different techniques for marketing and photo shoots and how you can still launch during shelter in place or lockdown. And the customer is way more open to different types of photo shoots and marketing tactics. I know I watched a TV show last night. It was like a reunion show for like some silly, too hot to handle. But it was on Zoom. So it was just like little photos of everyone. And like, that's normally not acceptable for a professional production. But with the environment today, people are totally open to doing photo shoots in your backyard and through windows and whatever it looks like. So that gives you guys the opportunity to lower the bar a little bit, make things a little bit easier because the customer is more open to it. So you want to think about your marketing and your photo shoots. If you spend all this time and money on a beautiful gown, and then at the end of the day, you're going to put it on your sister and shoot it, and it's not going to be to a production level that really shows off your garment. So you want to think about this. You want to plan for this. You want to have, know what you're going to do. We also, in that coaching, again, we have like a branding deck that you can do that we would run you through, and what it looks like to plan a photo shoot, and social media, and a calendar of how often you should post. So again, the OCD thing, checklists, templates, all of that stuff, you want to plan ahead of time. Number 10, not being mindful and considerate to everyone you meet. And I think that I talk about this a lot. It's so important. It's a smaller industry, and if you go into a factory and something happens and you're like, whatever, I'm not going to pay them, everyone will know about it. Other factories will know about it. Fabric vendors will know about it. You'll begin to get a reputation of not paying vendors or walking away from situations even though a balance is due. So you want to be super mindful. I'm not saying that you need to bend over backwards and like do everything that, like, if something happens with a factory and you feel that you're owed money, like, just negotiate this well, talk to them. Don't order something knowing you're not going to pay for it later, things like that. And being mindful of other designers too. People, you'll see the same designers at the trade shows. You'll see the same designers at your local events for fashion designers. The customers, the vendors, the fabric vendors, manufacturers, all of that comes into play when, people are really working together right now. So your network is so important, especially right now. Competitors are working together. People are really wanting to get through this to the other side. So they're collaborating, they're sharing sources, doing all of those things. So being mindful of all of that as you're going along. It used to be cool to be like a sassy fashion designer, but it's not cool. People are avoiding drama and that kind of like cool fashion design thing now. So just being mindful of your connections, and it's only going to help you. It's only going to help your network. You're helping other people. People are helping you. There is enough work, and there is enough clients, and there's enough for everybody. So let's just be on the same page. So there you have it. Those are my slides for the top 10 mistakes that new designers make. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share, I see that we've got some Q&As already. And I love Q&As. So if you have any questions, let me know. All right, so we have, where is a good place to learn, brush up on pattern making? So I went to school for fashion design. I learned pattern making, like sort of, but I went and got a job at a custom design shop, and I was trained under a woman in her 70s that had been doing it for 50 years. So if you have any opportunity to intern, to work at a place that they make patterns, to get under somebody that has, you know, these 25 or 50 years experience. And I can tell you that that woman did not want to teach me. It was like a Karate Kid kind of thing. Like she really tested me, like, does this girl really want to put in the work? And I remember one time I cut this fabric on the wrong grain, and she was watching me, and the designer came in and started screaming, and it was like $600 a yard. And she had sat there the whole time and watched me like this. And I looked at her and I was like, you watched me do that. And she goes, you will never do that again. She was right. Up until this day, I've never cut fabric on the wrong grain. So then I started crying, and she looks at me and she goes, how old are you? And I was like 20, whatever. And she goes, too old to cry like baby. So I went, I cried in the bathroom, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? She's right. I am too old to be crying. And then this woman is going to teach me, and she's got a skill, and I just didn't go away. So if you can find someone that can train you, that can help you, an internship, another company, and this was not in New York. This was just a custom design shop in the suburbs of Chicago, and it was an amazing experience for me. So yeah, look around to see if you can find someone that can train you in the pattern making and just offer to help for free. Again, like, yes, it's free, but you can see it as a free education instead of going back to school and learning that way. You can always do that, but it's expensive. College courses are expensive, and if you can find someone that's going to teach you, it won't cost you any money. This is a question for Jason. Jason, I haven't received the decks of the webinars, and I've been attending. How can I get them or contact you? So the decks themselves would have to come from the presenters, but you're sending out a recording, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the slides we're going to make available. Are you guys getting an echo?
It's cool.
Okay, we'll try to get through it.
Yeah,
so we're going to be sending out an
email
communications to get the link to the slide share once all of our presentations have been compiled. But these recordings are on Facebook Live as well. So if you go on the Apparel Textile Sourcing Miami Facebook page, and I'll send you a link to that right now. That's where you'll be able to find the recordings as well. So give me 1 second. Do we have any more questions for Anna?
Is it best to do the trade shows to get your brand out because those trade shows get pricey? All right, this, I should have a disclaimer. This is only my opinion. Well, I mean, I guess all this stuff is my opinion. I am not a huge advocate for trade shows, wholesale trade shows where, let me just explain, where you're going, you're getting a booth, you are selling to buyers, just because of the price. They like Pool, Project, Magic, all of these things are like $4,000 a booth, and as a new designer, unless you have the budget, and that's just for the booth, you've got to then have, you know, if you're going to have the posters and all the printings and the handouts and the tables, the decorations, the hotel, the travel, the flight. So they get really expensive really fast. And in my experience, let's say you have $6,000 and you're like, I can either do one trade show, or you can take what would be less than that $6,000, pack your stuff up and do a road trip around to different boutiques that you want to see and stop by and talk to. You can pack up all your stuff and fly to Portland and drive down to San Francisco. And you don't have to drive. I'm just saying, like, you would spend a lot less money and have a one-on-one contact with these buyers, opposed to being at a trade show where you're flooded out. Now I see larger designers that already have say they are going to go to a trade show and they have 50 or 100 clients, they all see them within those 4 days, it's worth it to them because they already have the customers. So if you get to a point where, let's say you've got 7 stores in the West Coast and you know that they all go to, say, Project, instead of doing the trip between the 7 stores to show them your collection every season, you can then go to Project, see them all at once and know they're going to be there and see you. But to generate business and get new boutiques and accounts, I've never seen it pay off in the first show. Never once, never, ever, ever once in my 12 years have I seen a designer go in and sell more than that booth cost. However, I have seen designers have success when they're like, okay, we have the budget. We're going to do 3 trade shows this season. We're going to do 3 trade shows next season, and they have the budget to see that out. So the customers are seeing them again and again and again. So then if you have that kind of budget and you're able to afford it, great, go for it. But to go in one and done and think that you'll get a larger return, it's really difficult. So that's just my opinion, trade shows. Right. I missed a bit at the beginning. Apologies if you already answered this, but what advice do you have for researching fabric supplies and apparel manufacturers? So again, you're here at this trade show. How many booths do you guys have, Jason?
Just over 100. Yeah.
Yeah, over 100 booths. So you can go
Virtual. Yeah. They're bigger in the actual trade shows, the physical ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some virtual booths, but normally trade shows are a good way to meet these vendors. And then also in the one-on-one coaching that I offer, I will see what you're sourcing and provide you with those vendors so that you can get all the fabrics that you're needed if you want the easy way out. Otherwise, just doing the legwork and doing these different trade shows and talking to different vendors and trying to build a network for it.
So, and I just wanted to clear up, just in case anybody is curious, and I'm asking as well, you're saying that it's not necessarily, in your opinion, a good idea to go to a trade show as a designer, as an exhibitor, correct? Not so much.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right. But it's definitely encourage people to go to trade shows or any industry events, really, that have to do
All
with
trade shows, industry events, 100%. You should go. You can get in normally, like this trade show is free, so you can go and walk the floor and that is for free. What I'm specifically talking about is for you as a vendor to get a booth at a, say, Magic or Project where you are the presenter and then the buyers are there and you're expecting to build new accounts off of that. So that is a large expense, and new, like Nordstrom's and these boutiques and these designers usually already they go to see the designers that they already carry. They'll browse the other designers. And like I said, if you've got enough money to do this season after season, it's great. But as a new designer with such a shoestring budget, you can travel and see these buyers and these stores directly. Like you can go to Miami for the apparel textile sourcing show, pick 6 boutiques that you want to stop by, load your car and stop by them. So all of your traveling can also be trips where you try and get buyers. And then you can tax deduct it, which is awesome. But yes, specifically trade shows like these where you guys are coming are different than, and back in the day, like 10 years ago, trade shows were the way to go. You would go to a trade show, you'd sell to stores and boutiques, you would deliver to them, and then you'd go back and do it again. So it used to be that was the way to sell. It has changed now with you guys having access to sell directly to customers and buyers being a little bit different in their selling windows. So yes. Does that help, Jason?
That was textbook answer, in my opinion. Okay, so Adriana, I did include the direct link to the Facebook videos page. If anybody else wants to check out past videos and, you know, for the ones that you can't make upcoming, this one is currently being recorded live. It's the Facebook group Apparel Textile Sourcing Miami. A little confusing because we have a virtual page as well, but this is where you'll find the videos. So Anna, thank you again. That was amazing as always. And thank you for everybody for the discussions and the participation. We will see you again tomorrow.
We didn't get to everyone's questions, but again, strategy session, Anna, ANNA, at Vmora.com. Book 20 minutes with me for free. I'll be here tomorrow at 1.
By the way, she did say free. It's an extremely valuable thing to be able to talk to an industry expert. You know, you can do all the research you want, but 10 minutes of talking to somebody is like, in my opinion, you know, like equivalent to hours and hours and hours of research. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, Anna. We'll see everybody else in another seminar.
Thanks,
Have a good
Jason.
day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.